Well, I got the old carpet out, and that was not too bad. All this trim around here on the doors, it just pops in. Everything's just plastic now, and it just pops into little receptacles there. So I took the trim out of the two front doors. The back doors here, I got it loosened up. I can't really take it out because there's a bolt in it where the shoulder harness seatbelt hooks onto the sidewall there that you got to take out. So anyway, I got it loosened up enough to slide that carpet out of there. And the same here on the post between the front seat and the back seat. I got it loosened up, but I couldn't get it out of there. And that's where the inertial reel for the shoulder harness seatbelt is down in there. And there was big bolts in there to hold the shoulder harness seatbelt down to the floor. They had to get a special Torx socket to get those out of there. Then over here underneath the passenger seat is where the paraphernalia for the jack handle and stuff like that is mounted there on the floor. And that, it took a different style of Torx, or a different size of Torx socket for that to come out of there. And then there's one of them that's a big wing nut. That was actually worse than the Torx bolts because it was in there stiff and you can't really get a wrench to get on it. I wound up getting a 12-inch crescent wrench to break it loose. A pair of vice grips to finish spinning it out of there. But anyway, the old carpet's out of here. I'm going to try to clean it up. Let's go take a look at the old carpet. Well, here's the old carpet, the carpet that I took out of the truck. Of course, it's dirty, got dog hair all over it and dirt impregnated in it and stuff like that. The main problem that I had with it was all the oil saturated in here, mainly underneath the driver's seat, underneath the driver's feet on the firewall there, but then it wicks back to the back seat along the edges there. You can see the dark stains along the edges where it wicked back in there. Well, that's why I was going to replace it, but this carpet is so much nicer carpet than the one I got for replacement. It's got a real heavy pad underneath it, insulation underneath it and stuff like that. It's a heavy, thick carpet. The carpet itself is good, and then it's got a lot of backing, heavy backing and stuff on it for insulation and soundproofing. So I'm going to try to clean it up. So I've got it out here draped over a couple sawhorses, and of course this driver's side, the passenger side too had a little bit of water in it, but the driver's side is saturated with water because the floor mats that I had in there are made to drain water out off away from the carpet, but the hydraulic fluid or the power steering fluid, as it came down in there and saturated that carpet, that caused that plastic to distort on that driver's side. It was no longer doing what it was supposed to do. So anyway, from being in and out with the snow and stuff like that in there, that carpet is pretty well saturated. It's dripping now, and I can also see the sheen of the oil that's saturated in the carpet from the sheen of that. So I'm going to let it sit out here. What I'm going to do is I've got some Zep degreaser cleaner stuff that really works to cut the grease, and I'm going to go ahead and mix some of that up and take my siphon sprayer and spray this carpet down with that and see if I can't get that cleaned out, and wash that a few times with that, and then maybe with some fresh water hang it up where it can get dried out and see if I can't salvage this. I just don't want to put that new carpet that I bought in there. When I was holding it up, because I could see daylight through it, and it doesn't have any backing on it or anything like that, so there wouldn't be any soundproofing with it or heat proofing or anything like that. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get that Zep out, mix up some hot water in it, and get my siphon sprayer out and stuff, and see if I can't salvage this carpet. Well, I took some of that Zep cleaner degreaser, put it in a bucket, and then filled it up with hot water. I mixed it up pretty strong. That stuff is pretty strong detergent. And then I got my air out here and my siphon gun and sprayed that carpet down pretty good with that. I'm going to let it soak in because that stuff has a tendency to help break down the oil and dirt and whatnot as it sits and soaks in. And it's damp enough out here it's not going to dry out too bad. Well, I got some sticks and held up this side. It's the carpet is draped over a couple of sawhorses there, but both sides draped down, so the water was just running out of it. So anyway, I got a couple of sticks stuck underneath it to hold it up so that that detergent mixture stays in the carpet longer or more instead of just running right out. So I'm going to let that sit and soak overnight. I don't know if it's going to snow tonight or rain or what. It's clouding up. It froze pretty hard overnight and it was frosty all day today. Still chilly out, but I think it's warmed up from what it was. But anyway, I'm going to let that soak overnight and then probably spray it down again a couple of times. Get that detergent in there working pretty good, and then maybe I'll get my pressure washer out and wash that down with some fresh water. The places where it wasn't too dirty is already showing it cleaning up. But the main thing I wanted to get was that hydraulic fluid or that power steering fluid, broke it down and get it washed out of there. So that carpet wouldn't have been pristine even if it didn't have that oil impregnated in it. That truck is 15 years old, got almost 180,000 miles on it. It's been worked hard. We've driven it from here south 4 or 5 times back and forth, down empty and back, loaded up and pulling trailers full of stuff. Camper on it with pulling a trailer all the way through the western United States one winter. And one trip to Anchorage and back, which is 1,000 miles each way. It's 1,000 miles each way just from here down to Seattle, plus whatever we did driving or stuff down there. And then it's driven a lot of miles in the mountain roads out here, hauling that trailer, hauling dirt, rock, logs, all kinds of equipment, all kinds of stuff. So it's a working truck. It's not a show truck, and it's not meant to be a show truck. So it was dirty even without that oil in there, but the oil was kind of nasty and it stunk, especially once I got away from it and it'd go back in. Once I started moving that carpet around, then you could really smell the oil smell on it. So anyway, I'm going to let this thing soak overnight, probably spray it a couple more times with that Zep cleaner to try to get that oil broke down in there, and then spray it down and put it someplace where I can get it dried out and put it back in. So it ain't going to be perfect, but it's going to be good enough. And it's getting dark out here, so it's getting to where it's just about too late to do any more outside here. I used the siphon spray gun and some cleaner degreaser mixed with water and went over that carpet several times, and then I took a brush and scrubbed it, got the bottom side out right now, and washed that off. Then I took a little power washer and washed it off with that. Got it cleaned up pretty good. It looks a lot better than it did. It's still got oil in it. Probably never get it all out of it. Most of the stains and stuff out of the carpet side of it. But on the back side or the bottom side of it here, there's about an inch of foam there over everything, and that has absorbed the water, absorbed the oil and whatnot. I've washed that and squeezed it, trying to get it out. I've got it hanging up here now like a hide off of an animal and letting it drip dry. Last time I sprayed it was last night. I worked on it till after dark last night, spraying on it and stuff, trying to get it cleaned up. I was still getting an oily sheen down there on the ground underneath it as the water come out of it, but it lessened up. It got so it wasn't near as much as it was, and I didn't have the oily crap coming out of it that I did when I started. Well, I come out here now and I've squeezed it and pressed on it, trying to get the water to run down out of it. That foam holds it pretty good. It don't want to come out of there. I guess the thing I've got to do now is take it inside someplace and hang it up like that with some heat on it so that it'll get it dried out. The thing weighs 100 pounds now like it is with the water in it. But I've got it cleaned up just about as good as I'm going to get it, and I'm going to get it dried out now. Even with a little bit of oil left in it, it's still better than that new carpet that I got. This thing has lots of insulation on the bottom of it, and the carpet fibers are a lot nicer than the new carpet that I bought for it. So I'm going to put this back in there. So I guess I got to fix a space for it up in the basement or something, and take it up there and hang it up like this so that I can put some heaters underneath it and around it and try to get the water evaporated out of it. The screaming horde just came out of the chicken coop and came down here to turn their birds loose. Yeah, darn goose and the guineas make a lot of noise. A little synopsis here. I had a brake booster, which is a hydraulic brake booster powered off of the power steering pump of the truck, has been leaking for years in here to the cab of the pickup and gotten hydraulic fluid saturated in the floor down here on the driver's side. So I just replaced the brake booster, but then the carpet was still all saturated. So I pulled the carpet out of here, took it outside and washed it, scrubbed it several times with some cleaner degreaser, and got it pretty good and had it hanging outside and let it drip dry. But it's cold outside. If we had sunny weather, 90-degree weather and stuff like that, a little breeze, it probably would have left it outside and let it dry out. But it's cold and it was raining. I covered it up with some plastic so it wouldn't get any wetter than what it was. But it wasn't going to dry out outside. So I took it in the basement yesterday and hung it up in there. And I just checked on it and it's starting to dry out. It's going to take another day or two for it to dry out completely. But I've got it sitting there with a heater underneath it and my dehumidifier right there close. So it's going to take a couple days. Meanwhile, inside the truck here was pretty wet, pretty damp. I mean, we had all of the oil on this left side here on the driver's side, but there was water in here. It was wet in here in a lot of different places, so a lot of standing water, and it was damp in here. So I put a heater in here. It's been in here for a couple days. Got pretty much most of the water all out, but of course it's not going to dry out this oil that's over here on this side. So I got some paint thinner here, some solvent, and a rag. I'm going to go ahead and start washing this out, get as much of this cleaned up as I can. And I got a couple other things to do in here. While I've got it all apart like this, while that carpet's drying out, last year I replaced the rear bumper, put a backup camera in, and some LED lights for backup lights, and I got those installed back there, but I run the wires up here underneath the cab of the truck, underneath the truck, and I never did run them in here and hook them up. So while I'm waiting for everything to dry and get all this cleaned up, I might as well do that. But the first thing to do is to get this oil cleaned up in here. So that's what I'm going to do now. This footwell right here had a little bit of residual oil on it. I've pretty much got that cleaned up here now. And there's another plastic mat. I almost feel like I should take it out because I know there's oil underneath it, but I'm not going to take that out. But this mat would be, yeah, there's oil underneath there. Look at that. But I have to take the whole dash, the whole thing out of here to get that out, because this thing goes up this side panel here, up the firewall and across the transmission hump, up and down the other side into the passenger side footwell and firewall. So that would be a major undertaking to take that out of there. So I'm just going to clean it up the best I can over here on this side. And then that oil ran all the way down this door channel here. There's a wire harness that goes right along here. There's some mud and stuff in there, dirt all along this channel right here. There's still a little bit oily. So I want to get this all cleaned up here while the carpet's drying out. There's no point in putting it all back together dirty. Let's see what we can get underneath here. All right, now that footwell is a lot better. It should clean that up pretty good. I'll go get a dry rag to finish that up. Let the solvent evaporate off of this, and then clean up this side panel over here. So I don't see any oil here, where underneath the seat, a little bit right here on the edge, but it didn't really come up on that. It wicked up that carpet and wicked up this rear door post, or this mid door post here, a little bit on it. So I might as well clean this up, make it nice and pretty while I'm doing it before I put that carpet back in. No point in cleaning that carpet up and putting it back in over a dirty floor. All right, I'm going to go get a clean dry rag and wipe this out here now. I got this floor in here in this cabin pretty well cleaned out. This track over here on this side was pretty grungy. And then, of course, there was dirt and stuff in here that got in below the carpet and whatnot a little bit. Not too bad. It wasn't too bad at all, but there was just some stuff in there. I used this Milwaukee portable vacuum cleaner to clean it out with. It operates off the same batteries as some of my tools do. That thing worked pretty good to get in here and get into some of these spots. It's got a lot smaller hose, but it's got this little crevice tool that gets in better than what I can get in with my big shop vac. One of the things that was a problem on here and what did cause a lot of the mess over here was that hydraulic fluid or transmission fluid, the fluid that come out of that brake booster, melted or dissolved the adhesive on the electrician's tapes that holds this wire bundle together here. There's a wire bundle that runs down along the floor down here. This splits off and goes over to the other side, and then it comes up and goes through this doorpost on this side, and that's probably what runs the power speakers and stuff for the door lock and the light switch and windows and all of that stuff for this left-hand door, the passenger door. The electrician's tape that was on there got pretty well boogered up. The adhesive was all gone on and it was brittle and stuff. So I think I'm going to go ahead and tape this wiring harness bundle back up in here and run some tape on the bottom of it so that it kind of works as a anti-chafing. This is just small wire that they use on these trucks anymore. It's like 20 gauge wire, most of it. The insulation on it's real thin. I won't say it's exactly crappy wire, but it's not as good a wire as what you might want. So it's a good possibility that if it gets dirt and stuff in here, it'll rub through that insulation. Now this has a shield over this wiring harness right here as it goes, and it's held down to the floor with some of these plastic rivets. Thought maybe I could get underneath it with some tape, but it might be more difficult than I had hoped. So I'm going to go get my tool and pop those rivets out of there. And I've got rivets to replace them with if I can't salvage these. So that's the next step, is just to redo this wiring bundle here. I wished I knew what everything in here was for. Like I said, obviously some of this is for the door back here, but then I've got a jack right there, a plug right there that didn't go anywhere. And then we got this wiring harness here, of course. This is for the seat controls, for the power seat controls for the driver's seat. I don't have power seat controls for the passenger seat. I don't know. I worry that if I left that stuff on there, it might eat into the insulation on these wires. And this is kind of my forever truck, as you might say. It's the last truck I'm ever going to buy. I can't afford to buy a new one, not at the prices that they are now. Don't have that much longer to go, but I need one. So I want to do the most best I can to take care of this one. And as far as I'm concerned, the new ones just get worse and worse every year with all the crap they put on them, more electronic stuff, more pollution control and all that. They just get worse and worse all the time as far as their long-term reliability. Always fun to drive a brand new truck or car with all the bells and whistles in them. Been able to do that a couple times when we go south and rent a car. And it's neat having all of the new fancy stuff in a new car to drive around. But it sure ain't worth the price tag to buy one. I can't see how anybody would justify buying one the price they are now. But I guess $90,000 to replace this rig. Now I'm too far gone to want to worry about making payments again. Well, I get a dry rag and wipe that stuff down. That changes my plan a little bit, my timing of my plan a little bit. I was just planning on coming right out here and putting some electrician's tape on all this and calling it good. Now I got to wait for this solvent, this lacquer thinner, to dissolve before I put any electrician's tape on there. It's just going to do the same thing as the stuff I just took off. It's going to dissolve the adhesive on it and make it nasty. So I'll wipe this down with a dry rag, get as much of that off of there as I can, and let that evaporate while I go do something else. My plan was to go ahead and rewrap this with electrician's tape. This would be all finished off, and then I'm going to jack up the front end and start bleeding that power brake system, the power steering system. I turn it back and forth and keep adding power steering fluid to it. And then I've got wires that I run underneath for some LED backup lights that I need to get wired in. I'm going to put a switch in here someplace for those so I can turn them on. I'm not going to have them wired into the backup lights. I'm going to wire them into a relay so I can turn them on and off when I want to use them. Then I've got the wiring for the backup camera. I get that run up in here. And then I've got this radio system here. They call it a rec nav radio stuff. That thing has not been working right. It won't come on. So I thought maybe I'd go ahead and pull that out of there, see what I can do with it. I looked at it once before, and I think there's a plug on it so that it can hook the backup camera into that. Anyway, I'm going to pull that out and see if I can get it working. But first things first, I'm going to go ahead and jack this thing up. I got new jack stands I'm going to put underneath it and try to get that power steering bled. Got the carpet laid back in there. Still got to bolt everything down to shoulder harnesses, seat belts, and all that kind of stuff. I've still got to clean up the door trim, the door runner panels for the front seat and the kick panels and put those back in. And of course the cup holder and the rest of the stuff from the dash panel up there. But that's a big thing, getting that back in. That looks a whole lot better than it did when it came out of there. That thing is a whole lot lighter now than it was when I was wrestling around when it was wet and dirty. It was all I could do to handle it by myself, but even with two of us, it was a handful to handle. But with it dried out like this and clean, it's not near as heavy. It was a lot easier to handle. Well, it might take a little bit for that to get set back down in there where it goes, but it actually fit down in there pretty good. It didn't shrink or anything, and all the holes are lined up where they go, where the shoulder harnesses mount up and the seats mount up. That looks a lot better than it did. I'm happy with that. Still a little bit of residual oil over there on that outside edge. I squeezed it out and squeezed it out and squeezed it out and got it, most of it out of there, but it's still got a little bit in there and probably never all come out, but it's a whole lot nicer than it was, that's for sure. I had the new carpet that I could have put in there, but this carpet, even with the oil stain in it, is so much nicer than the new carpet is. And the color matches. This has got this lighter gray color, and the new carpet is a dark gray. Not that that matters too much. God, most of the trucks and cars and stuff that I ever had for years, all they had was rubber floor mats in them underneath your feet, and the rest of it was all steel. So this is pretty luxurious compared to that. So I got some work to do yet to get her buttoned in. I've got a bunch of pins to put in back here where this carpet laps over the cargo carrying pod, whatever that is, underneath the back seat. And of course bolt down all the stuff that I took out of it, the shoulder harnesses and jack handles and stuff like that. So I'll get busy and get that done. Then I'll clean up the rest of those plastic parts, trim parts, and put those in there. And maybe by the time my son gets here to go take the dogs for a walk, I can get him to help me put the seats back in. We'll see. We just about got it back together. I got the carpet in, shoulder harness is bolted down, bracket for my jacks and everything, handles and all of that bolted in. I'm not going to put the jack or the handles in until I get the seats in because they stick up quite a bit and it'd be easier to put the seats in without those in. I got the dash all back together, and that all looks really good. The only thing that I've got left to do is to put that lower trim piece around the bottom door rail. And that thing was really greasy and nasty, so I just got it cleaned up. It's sitting over underneath the heater drying out right now. I had to wash it down with solvent to get the grease off of it, and then soap and water, and then I rinsed it down with some water. So that's sitting over there now getting dried out. All in all, everything is back together. So my son is out and my wife are out walking the dogs right now. When they get home, I'll get my son to help me put that seat back in there. I'm really happy with the way that carpet turned out. That's a lot nicer than it was. It ain't perfect, But it's an 18-year-old truck, so what do you expect? Well, the cab of the truck is all back together, all cleaned up, and everything is back together the way it's supposed to be. The dashboard's all reassembled, and the last thing we did was my son helped me put the seats back in there. I got those lined up and I've got those bolted down now. I still need to put the seat covers on it. We took those off and washed those, and they turned out pretty nice. I run through it again with a vacuum cleaner and get some of the dirt and stuff out of there from getting in and out of it, putting the seats in. But otherwise it looks pretty good, a whole lot better than it did. I don't have the headrest put in it yet either, so those go in after we put the seat covers on, because the little tabs that they go into go down through the seat covers. But they're out here ready to go in. Anyway, that portion of it's done.